Hello and welcome to Quarantine Athlete. We're here to discuss how to stay in the game and push through these extraordinary times together. My name is Martise Moore, former USC hurdler turned confidence and performance coach. And today I'd like to introduce our incredible guest, Valorie Kondos Field, also known as Miss Val. Miss Val was the head coach of the UCLA Gymnastics team for 29 years. And during that time, she won 7 national championships, was inducted into the UCLA Athletics Hall of Fame, and named Pac-12 Coach of the Century. Oh, and about a year and a half ago, she published a book called Life is Short, Don't Wait to Dance, available now on Amazon and Audible. Miss Val, I need this to be autographed after this is over.
Of course.
But thank you so much for joining us, Miss Val. I'm so excited right now because today Miss Val is going to share with us her empowering perspective on these unprecedented times and how we can use this time to become champions in life. And now, without further ado, let's get into a huddle with one of the greatest coaches of all time, Valorie Kondos Field. Okay, Miss Val, about a month ago, we all heard the shocking news that sports were canceled due to the pandemic. And if you were the head coach of the UCLA gymnastics team, what would you say to them right now?
First of all, I would make sure that they understood that they weren't alone, that we're all in this together, because I think at times all of us are feeling anxiety and sadness, and we're all feeling the same emotions at different levels, obviously, for whatever we're going through. But it's important to realize the power of community, and that we all are in this together. And even though, I really don't like the term social distancing, we are physical distancing, but we need to stay socially connected. And so I would just calm their nerves and soothe their emotions by just giving them a virtual huddle and hug and saying, we got this. Secondly, I think athletes have a little bit of a leg up on most people because athletes are used to getting knocked down time after time after time. That's what athletes do in every sport. You don't just not complete your goal. You get knocked down, you get injured, you get whatever. And what athletes are trained to do from the time that they're little is to get back up, and not just get back up, but get back up with renewed intention and determination and commitment and resilience. So it's not like we get knocked down, athletes get knocked down, and then they just kind of get back up and blindly go about it again to get knocked down again. They get back up with renewed intention. And because of that, I feel like this is the perfect time to get back up every morning with renewed intention of who you want to be. What type of an athlete do you want to be? What habits do you want to leave behind?
Right.
And what habits do you want to feed? New habits you may already have that aren't that strong, or new habits, and develop them so that when you're able to go out and play again, you're actually stronger and a better mental athlete than you were before.
Right. I love that. That's great. Now, for some of the seniors, though, it may be a little bit harder for them because this might have been it for their athletic careers, whether it's the end of high school or the end of college. Do you have any words for them?
Yeah. First of all, I'm sorry that this happened. We all feel badly. Are you getting an echo from me? Okay. We all feel badly that you weren't able to conclude your careers, or at least your senior careers, the way you should have been celebrated. However, big picture, and I've always felt this way as a coach of athletes, that The reason to do athletics is to learn all of those really, really, really tough life lessons that you don't learn in the classroom.
Right.
And then take all those life lessons into the world to make the world a better place.
Right.
To be an athlete isn't just about winning and bragging rights.
Mm-hmm.
It's about so much more than that. So some athletes are able to go on to either a college career, or the college seniors that had their career cut short, they're able to go on to professional career, possibly. Gymnasts, the athletes that I coach, there is no professional career.
Mm-hmm.
And so that literally, like Kyla Ross, Olympic gold medalist, she's 22 years old, did gymnastics for 20 years.
Wow.
Done. Like, never knew that last day. And like, her last meet in Poly Pavilion was the alumni meet. And then the very next weekend was going to be our senior meet, our senior presentation. That was canceled. So she
Mm-hmm.
never knew that. However, when you talk to Kyla Ross, she says, I have no regrets, because she lived each day to the best of her ability.
Mm-hmm.
I have talked to athletes, seniors, that didn't live their best days the last few years and were kind of waiting for championship season to really dial it in, and they have regrets.
Sure.
So the life lesson is, live each day as if it's your last. Enjoy it, love it, appreciate it, give it everything you got. Go to bed exhausted mentally, physically, and emotionally, so that in the morning, at night, when you go to bed at night, you can say, I don't have any regrets. I have no regrets. And sadly, the biggest life lesson, life example to all of us recently in this is Kobe Bryant. He didn't know that that was going to be his last morning. He didn't know the day before was his last day. But I guarantee you, Kobe Bryant has no regrets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that really does bring emotions to the forefront. Mentioning that, like your book says, life is short. It really does. I think we were all present to that because of his recent death, anyway. And now with the pandemic, it really kind of hits home that we're not promised tomorrow. Even if you're young. So, like you said, like, play all out and go to bed exhausted and knowing that you gave your best. So, one of the things that's most remarkable about you is that your coaching style is a bit different from most coaches, in that you really focus on the complete athlete and really helping them become better people, not just better athletes, and really touting the idea of becoming champions of life in general. And I really love that, because it's really like in alignment with how I feel and how I treat my athletes. So I just wanted to know from you, do you have any advice about right now how we could use this time to become champions in life?
Yeah, I think that right now, the most important muscle to train every day is our minds.
Mm-hmm.
And every great athlete talks about the game within the game. And that game within the game is the mental game. And now, what better time than to go somewhere in your house, outside your house, and go through that mental game. See yourself, if you're a softball player, approaching a mound, see yourself, all the habits that you do, the good habits, the mantra that gets you in your cadence. You knock the dirt off your boots, you tap the mound, you look, you take a practice swing, all of that. Go through all of that. In basketball, they talk about shorts, hand sweat, 1, 2, 3, swish. In gymnastics, it's the same thing. You get up, you mention your cue, strong legs, and you say, I got this. And you can't do enough mental routines. I mean, you're never going to wear out your mind like you wear out your body.
Right.
In doing mental preparation.
Mm-hmm.
And gosh, in my 37 years at UCLA, I wish I would have documented every single day, so that I could, in times like this,
Right.
show young athletes the power of the mind, because I've seen it over and over and over again, where athletes should not have been able to go out and compete as brilliantly as they did. And every time they would come down, I'm like, how'd you do that? You haven't even been training because you've been injured. And every single time for over 3 decades, the athlete would say something like, Miss Val, it's because I've been doing so many mental routines. I am no longer practicing bad habits. I'm only practicing good habits. And that mental game doesn't just happen. Like as I'm telling you all this, when you step up to the plate, or you step up to do a balance beam routine mentally, it's not always going to go well. You're going to have faults. You're going to have misses. You're going to miss the basket. But that's why it needs to be trained, and you need to train your mind just like you do your bicep for a pull-up or something. You need to train your mind diligently. And when your mind kind of goes off track, you take a breath and you bring it back on track. That muscle is the difference between great athletes and simply good athletes.
Right. And that's what's really awesome about gymnastic athletes, because I feel like when I work with gymnasts, they seem to be mentally stronger than the other athletes that I coach. And I was just wondering, is that built into the program? Is there a set amount of time that you guys work on the mental aspect, or is it the athletes do it on their own?
No, I think the reason why gymnasts are mentally tougher, gymnasts have an amazing ability to focus, to drown out the noise and to focus. But use balance beam as an example. It literally is 4 inches wide. And for them to do the skills they're doing up there, it's really extremely difficult, not just physically. Like, you can do those skills probably 95 out of 100 times on a floor beam. But once you get 4 feet off the ground, it's a totally different game. Once you put the noise of the crowd and the possibly the crowd that doesn't like you in the game, the boos, all that, you've got to learn to drown that out. And gymnasts learn to do that at a very, very, very young age, because our sport is amazing. But if you do not learn to focus, you can get seriously injured. So the reason why it is this ability to focus is inherent in gymnasts is because they learn at 7, 8, 9 and up that you've got to be able to drown out the noise, focus on what you want to do. And they practice this over and over and over, not just mentally, but through what the physical training they're doing. Otherwise, they're going to get hurt.
Right.
And so I had a basketball player come up to me one time, and he said, Miss Val, you have the toughest sport. And I said, why? And he said, because if I start to get a little nervous, I just pass the ball. When they get nervous, gymnasts get nervous, there's nobody to pass the ball to. They have to finish. They have to figure out how to finish. And what a great life lesson that is.
Right.
You can't pass the ball all the time in life. You have to figure out how to finish with confidence, with dignity, with poise, with calm, but with grit and determination.
Yeah. I've definitely always been amazed as to how they can perform on the Olympic stage, especially when the whole world is watching and there's so much at stake. You're competing for your country, and then I'm like, wow, they just look so poised still. And I'm always just amazed by that. And it's funny when I get to work with gymnasts, I don't even have to worry about their mental state. They already are just, like you said, focused and right there. I'm just ready to tackle the next skill. So.
If I was queen of the universe, I would somehow make it available so that every young child, boy and girl, train gymnastics for like 5 years of their life. And then they can go do any other sport they want. But I just feel the training that gymnasts have at such a young level it makes every other part of their lives better and easier. Like in school,
Mhm.
Usually gymnasts are very good students.
Mhm.
Well, why? Because they've learned to focus
Mhm.
at such a young age. So when they're in class, they actually focus. When they're studying, they actually focus.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. I believe that. I actually, gymnastics was one of my first sports because I was pretty clumsy as a kid. So my parents wanted me to get some balance in my life, so I stopped falling all the time.
Great. And it worked.
Yes,
See?
yes. Actually, vault was my favorite event, and
Yeah,
beam, I was terrified. of beam.
right. Because
So
it was a vault is a power event. And so you
yeah,
just wanted to go,
yeah, go
yeah,
fast and
right.
go over it. So okay, well, that's wonderful advice. One of the things that you talk about that I really admire is about experiencing joy in life. And right now, like you were saying, we're all going through various stages of anxiety. And I just wanted to hear from you, like, what are some of the things that you're doing right now to make sure that you continue to experience joy through this uncertain time?
Oh, that's a great question. I had an interesting few days. Last Easter Sunday,
Hmm.
I woke up extremely sad. It
Hmm.
just kind of all hit, all of the quarantine, all of the COVID, all of the sadness that people were feeling. I felt like I was internalizing,
Hmm.
and I was very, very down
Hmm.
and sad. And I didn't know what to do about it because I live with my husband, and I didn't feel it was fair to him for me to be Debbie Downer.
Hmm.
But I also didn't feel like I could just fake it.
Sure.
And I'm a very good, one of my dearest, closest friends happens to be Dr. Parham, sports psychologist.
Okay.
And I called him, and he said, you know, it's so important in life, especially times like this, that you honor your feelings,
Hmm.
that it's, if there's a reason for your sadness,
Hmm.
you recognize that, you honor it, you meditate or pray over the reasons why you're sad. You don't just try to brush them under the rug,
Hmm.
because even though they may be out of sight, they're still there under the rug. And he gave me great advice. He just said, honor those feelings, allow yourself to be sad,
Hmm.
um, do what makes you feel, brings you comfort in that sadness, whether it's cuddling up in your robe in your chair, whether it's taking a nap, whether it's going for a walk, whatever they may be. But give yourself a time.
Hmm.
Allow yourself the time you're going to be sad,
Right.
and then the time you're going to move on.
Hmm.
Because one of the greatest ways we can honor our doctors, our nurses, our first responders, our grocery clerks, our firemen and policemen, all them,
Hmm.
is to, in our quarantine, is to enjoy and appreciate what we have.
Right.
So if we are home in sadness our entire time, we're really not honoring them, because what they're doing is allowing us to have this life
Right.
at home.
Hmm.
Um, and so on Easter Sunday, I gave myself until 5 o'clock at night. And I literally just went from cuddling and reading a book to taking a nap and the whole bit. And then at 5 o'clock, I went, okay, time's up. Here we go. Like, I was out of my timeout, you know? And I then just started putting all the moments of gratitude in my head. I'm
Hmm.
so grateful I actually have a house to quarantine in.
Right.
I'm happy that I have enough food to eat. Sadly, I go to the refrigerator a lot. I'm happy that I have clothes to wear that make me warm. I'm happy I have books to read and keep on the piano, and I love to play the piano. I have all these things, you know, that I'm so grateful for. And when you live, once again, the power of the mind,
Hmm.
your mind cannot focus on gratitude and sadness or destruction or anything negative at the same time. It can ping pong back and forth,
Right.
but if you really truly keep hitting that refresh button, we all have this big refresh button ourselves. Hit that refresh button on something you're grateful for.
Hmm.
And that helped me get out of that sadness.
That's wonderful advice. I'm going to be more present about practicing that too. I am very grateful. It's a luxury for us to be at home right now. So exercise for me, I've never appreciated it more than ever. You know, it's so great. It helps relieve a lot of stress and anxiety, and I'm so grateful for exercise. I remember as an athlete so many times where I was not grateful for exercise, the pain, you know, but now I love it, you know, because it makes me feel alive afterwards. So I think what you're saying just is really
Well, and
good.
I think what you're saying is so important about appreciating exercise, because when we take it for granted, we don't feel really all the benefits that come from it. But
Hmm.
every single day, I give myself, I call it a recess, because I'm at this Zoom meetings all day long.
Yeah.
Then I schedule a recess where I get to go outside. As soon as I step outside and
Hmm.
start walking, I feel the endorphins kick in.
Right.
And science has taught us that when we exercise, the chemicals in our brain shift. The
Hmm.
endorphins kick in and we feel excited and happy.
Yeah.
And because we're at a time like this where it seems like everything we're feeling is so magnified,
Right.
what you just said, Martise, is that is also magnified. And seriously, when I step outside, take a deep breath of fresh air that we now have.
Right.
Yeah. And then I start walking, my sadness or my heaviness lifts
Right.
and dissipates.
Hmm. Yeah. And hopefully we remember that feeling when things get back to normal too, and just really have gratitude because, like I said, you know, in the past, I was not grateful for the pain of working out or really hard workouts. Now I love it, you know, because I can still do it, and then it just makes me feel really good.
Well, and what you just said is so important. Hopefully we remember this when we're out of quarantine. And that is a choice.
Mm-hmm.
It's a choice for us to really imprint on our brains the things that we're doing now, the habits that we're developing now, and find a way to maintain those habits when we're able to be out of quarantine. Just as it is important to recognize the habits that we don't like about ourselves and discard those now and leave those behind in
Mm-hmm.
quarantine. So when we're able to come out, they're left behind.
Right.
We're no longer feeding those bad habits.
Mm-hmm.
And now's the perfect time to do this. If we all don't come out of this better
Right.
humans, shame on us,
Mm-hmm.
because we'll never have another time as 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 easy as this to make positive change.
Yeah.
Because think about it, people change their habits when they've been hit with catastrophe.
Right.
Or I shouldn't say that. It's easiest for people to change their habits when hit by a, a potentially fatal illness
Right.
or a car crash or something like that, or a divorce or something horrible.
Right.
It's harder to change your habits when your life is good and you're just going on and on and on and on and on and on and on. But now we've been hit with a catastrophe.
Right.
Now's the perfect time for us to do some internal investigation and see the things about ourselves we don't like
Right.
and change. And it's 100% in our control.
Right.
100%.
To Coach Val, these are words of wisdom, sage advice from one of the greatest coaches of all time. And with that said, we're gonna go ahead and wrap up. Are there any last words or advice in terms of actions that you recommend for all the quarantine athletes out there to be doing right now that you haven't already?
Yeah, and I feel like gratitude is the word of the century right now. But when I was diagnosed with breast cancer,
Mhm.
I heard very clearly, be anxious for nothing and grateful for all things.
Mhm.
And I thought it was a little weird because I had just gotten diagnosed with breast cancer. Um, and I went home to my husband. I told him this, and he said, that's from the Bible. I'd never read the Bible.
Mhm.
So I heard this before I ever read it.
Mhm.
So to me, this was a commandment: be anxious for nothing Like literally be anxious for nothing in life and grateful for everything. And I didn't get it. And the next day I went to my doctor and she told me if I'd been diagnosed with cancer 10 years earlier, they had nothing for me. Nothing. They would have sent me out and just said, prepare for end of life. But because I was diagnosed at the time I was, they had a chemotherapy that they knew was going to work if I chose to get it. And at that moment, I understood the commandment to how not be anxious going through a year of chemotherapy with this potentially fatal disease was through gratitude. I didn't have to get chemotherapy. I got to get chemotherapy because I lived at a time that has the chemo. I was so excited to get chemotherapy. I called it going to my chemo spa.
Oh, wow.
And switching that one word, have to get to, in every aspect of my life has changed, opened my life like in living color. So right now, everybody, we don't have to stay home. We get to stay home because we have homes we can stay in. And we have people that are willing to go on the front line and fight the enemy for us. They're fighting the battle for us. So we get to stay home.
Right. Perspective is everything. So thank you for helping us with our perspective and getting through this pandemic together. And how can we stay inspired by you, Miss Val? Do you have like social media we can follow?
I do. I'm on all the, my book, Life is Short, Don't Wait to Dance.
Yeah.
It's also out on Audible.
Yeah.
I have had a lot of young boys and girls telling me that they're listening to it as they're reading it, which is wonderful. I have if you check out my Instagram stories, I'm very blessed. They've been bringing in about 40 or 50 goats every day around our properties, around our home, because we're in a fire district.
Okay.
And so every day I go out and I commune with the goats, which just brings me a lot of calm. And I have a website called officialmissval.com. And I post things that I'm thinking about every week. And it's been getting a lot of traction, especially this last month. So officialmissval.com or Miss Val Kondos, I think is my Instagram.
We'll put
and then just
the bottom of the video so everybody has it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's it for today's episode of Quarantine Athlete. Be sure to follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Green Runner LA and on YouTube. And leave your comments about Miss Val's sage advice. And until next time, stay safe and be well.